Good evening and happy Friday. Perhaps it is Saturday, depending upon where you are on the globe. Prayerfully, everyone has enjoyed this Friday and excited about the weekend. Those of you that are coming in and who may catch the replay, please, if you would not mind, hit the like button. The like button can be found in the upper right hand corner, those three little dots. So this is going to be Friday's Ride and Vibe. And to have everything together. And this conversation is going to be about the book of Job. First, I would like to say, no, I am not, and I repeat, I am not a Bible thumper, nor would I consider myself religious, more so spiritual. And with my own experience and what I've observed and observe on a daily, it made me think a lot about the book of Job. Now, those of you that are believers, and again, all of these are just my opinions, the main books that I hear most people speaking of or referring to, of course, would be Genesis number 2. A close number 2 would be the book of Revelations, and then also Job. Now, the significance, well, I would ask some questions, but I'm going to be paying attention to what it is that I'm doing so that I can make it home safely. But for those of you that may be listening or coming later, are you familiar with Job, the book of Job, and what it symbolizes? If so, you may either leave a 1 in the chat, and I'll see it either later on or during the replay. But those of you, as I mentioned, that may be familiar with the book of Job, please indicate by either putting a 1 or some indication that you are familiar with the book of Job, the story of Job that is in the Bible. And you can put a 1 in the chat or whatever you would like, so I would know when I go back and check. Job. And if there is something that you question or something that I may not be completely accurate with, please feel free to leave that in the chat as well. So with that, I am ready to get on this road and get my drive on. So, book of Job. For those of you that are familiar, Job represents a righteous man. And this can be found in the Old Testament. And that's just for your reference. Hi there, Jamie TV. How are you? Happy Friday. Perhaps it's Saturday. But thank you so much for coming by and speaking about the book of Job. And again, I'll repeat, I am not a Bible thumper, and I do not consider myself as religious. However, I will say I am spiritual. Does that mean that I am perfect? Absolutely not. I've said that before. And as long as I am able, I will always say that. That being said, Job in the Bible, the Old Testament, symbolizes a righteous man who suffered. If you've been around long enough in life, you have either experienced directly or indirectly some form of suffering. Suffering, in my opinion, is not, and I repeat, is not limited to the physical. Again, it is not limited to the physical. You have psychological and emotional as well. Each day that I wake and I go on about my day, I observe suffering from many people, in several walks of life. Sometimes it may be the same people or different people. Young people, old people, as I mentioned earlier this week, even the creatures, which are also, in my belief, God's creations, they suffer as well. Job, as I mentioned earlier, for those who are believers, and I am not, I repeat, I am not pushing any agenda or forcing my beliefs upon anyone. This is just a commentary and my thoughts on my observations and my own life experiences. Now we know, or those that are familiar with Job, faithfully obeyed God despite the challenges. And he was tested by who? Or by way of the adversary, the evil one, who was really arrogant, quite pumped, if you will, and believed that if Job, who had everything, was stripped of those items, of those family members, of every possession, would he stray away? Would he actually curse God? The test was initiated. And Job, who at one time had everything, found himself stripped of everything. Now I want to ask before I continue. Again, thank you for those that may have come in the chat and those who may catch the replay. Have you ever been in a storm or a season where everything, and I am not being facetious, everything that you attempt, and it could be the most minuscule, basic things, will not work out? Or everything that you attempt is denied. Nothing that you do, those that you may call, can help you. It's like every door that you attempt to open and go through, it's not only closed, it's actually slammed in your face. And when I say a storm, I'm not speaking about a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm speaking about storms that last months, some years. Believe it or not, there are people who spend years in prayer, years suffering. Next question I have, and we've heard this many times, at least I have. Do you believe that God punishes us? Or do you believe during these times it's actually discipline? Punishment versus discipline. In my opinion, in my personal experience, I would gravitate towards the latter. Discipline. I feel that, and again, these are solely my opinions and beliefs. Others may not, and it is okay. It is okay to have a difference of opinion or totally disagree. But in times of adversity, for me, I believe it has been discipline. Discipline does not feel good. Discipline is there, I believe, to strengthen you. And sometimes to allow you to force you to get out of your own way and trust the process. Operative word meaning trust Now, when things are going great, everything your heart desires has fallen into your lap. The thought of losing all of that, the thought of calamity rarely crosses many minds. So that is why, for me, I make it a part of my regimen if I'm afforded by favor, grace, and mercy another day to give thanks. It is easy to forget to give thanks when everything appears to be perfect on the surface. But the minute something goes wrong, many people scurry to pray. And no, I am not here to make any judgment calls on that, because again, we all are human. My belief, however, is you give thanks and praise in both the good and the bad, because as I mentioned earlier, if we live on this side long enough, adversity, heartache, heartbreak will surely darken your doorsteps, either directly or indirectly. And the question will be, will you buckle? Will you, as the adversary believed Job would after losing, or shall I say, being stripped of everything? Waver in faith and curse who he believed was his God. Many people question or ask the question, why does it seem that bad things happen to good people? Why do the righteous suffer? Some people may answer it as natural law. Some people may answer that it's God's will. To be quite honest, with all of my reading and studying, I cannot, at this time, give an answer to that. It's just like those that are not believers or non-believers will say, well, how do you know there's a God if you can't see that entity? There have been a lot of debates, a lot of scientific thoughts placed upon that. The first answer that would come across my head is, well, And I'm not being facetious. It may sound like it, but I'm not. You don't physically see wind, but it exists. And as a result of particular storms that bring wind gusts, you will definitely know by the aftermath that wind definitely does exist. Now, am I reaching with that analogy? Some people may say yes. I don't believe that I am. But that's my answer to that. There have been so many times, and I'll just give one example. There are plenty that I feel as though I have been saved from some of the most craziest situations where others who may have encountered the same did not experience the same end result. One of those situations, and this was years ago, I'm going to say 2009 or 2010. I remember it because at that time I had a 2009 BMW 3SI. Was a little one of those cute little fancy cars. I worked hard, so that's what I wanted, and that's what I bought. But where I lived to get home, and yeah, there were different routes I could have taken, but I decided to go down that twisty hill that many people, for whatever reasons, had horrible accidents. I think speed was a major factor in a lot of those accidents. That particular road, as I said, had twists and turns. But because I traveled it every day, I knew how to navigate it. And that particular road always had traffic both directions. One afternoon, I was on my way home, and I forgot what song I was listening to, but I was going down that hill, and there was a certain pole I always would look out for because that's where many accidents would occur. And I made sure to even brake as I approached that area. That particular day, every precaution that I took, it didn't work. I believe there must have been an oil slick on the road, which I did not see. And that little car went in the direction of that pole. I tried to use what I learned in driving school. to spin so I could get back on the road, but it didn't work. The car slightly went airborne, and I was facing the opposite direction, a direction on an extremely narrow road. Any other time, there would have been oncoming traffic. Had there been oncoming traffic, I would have been gone. I would have been gone. There would have been no way, no way I would have survived that. It honestly felt like the car was lifted and turned in a different direction. And the vehicle that was behind me, I'll never forget the look on that man's face when he got out of his car. He looked at me. He looked at that pole with his hands on his hips and just shook his head. So I already know, and I knew then, something, a higher power prevented something horribly going wrong for me. I have a issue with survivor's remorse because many of the things that I've experienced in my life, unfortunately and sadly, and I've spoken about this before many times, that I've survived where others, unfortunately, succumbed. One of those situations, and I'll just touch on this briefly, was C-19. Even with my health condition, even with my getting, and this was a time where I would get sick often, a respiratory issue or bronchitis or pneumonia. I was prone getting those things. I never, ever had C-19, and I've been tested and was tested and tested and tested and tested. Never had it, but there were people, and many of you I'm sure can remember, did unfortunately get diagnosed, and many people did not survive, and my heart went out, and it still goes out to them and their families. Because even though it's 2024 and this was 2020, it was just a horrible time in history. And there are people that are still suffering and feeling the residual effects. So this is why I'm saying I see suffering on different levels in different capacities daily. I see many people, again, from all walks of life, on the highways with signs, some sitting in front of convenience marts, some near bus stations or commuter rails. Many women, many men, and there's been an uptick of women and small children. That is very, very painful to see. And many people would question, why would a just God allow that? Is this punishment or discipline? And as I mentioned earlier, there are some people who may say, natural laws or God's will. I personally don't have an answer, but I believe, and from studying, that the book of Job is to teach about faith. No matter how bad the circumstances are. And many of us who have weathered storms, there are circumstances out there, extreme circumstances where your vehicle may break down, circumstances where there's a loss of employment for maybe one or two people in the household, circumstances where you're no longer able to provide food for your family or a roof over your head and their heads. There are many nefarious and diabolical people, in my opinion, in this world. And I do believe, and again, this is just my opinion, that the adversary comes in many forms. Oftentimes through people. It's just something to think about. And sometimes those people, in my opinion, orchestrate and design a blueprint to destroy. It is said and believed by many that the evil one is sent to steal, kill, and destroy. So Job, who had, according to the Bible, and for those who believe, had everything but his faith. And keep in mind, in the Bible, he was known as a righteous man. A righteous man. But his faith, by way of the adversary one, was tested as God, according to the Bible, stripped him of everything. The adversary was sure. He was positive that Job would lose his faith and end up cursing him. That didn't happen. He remained faithful. How many of you have remained faithful during difficult times? Hey there, Denmax. How are you? And thank you so much for coming by. How many of you have remained faithful during the most difficult times in your life? Hi there, Jay. How are you? Please be sure to hit the like button if you have not already. It is in the upper right-hand corner, those 3 little dots. And if you're new, you're Indian. Okay. Hindi. Okay. So I'm sure that you have your beliefs as well. But Job's faith did not waver, much to the chagrin of the adversary. And after God saw that, according to the Bible, everything that Job lost was returned. In other words, there was total restoration. And in fact, he was given more than what he had prior because he stood on his faith. How many of us can say we've done that when we've suffered insurmountable loss, tragic loss, cruel loss? Do we stop praying? Do we stop believing? Do we curse God? Do we question? Hi, Leonia, how are you? Thank you so much for coming through. But do we engage in any of those behaviors? Because as I questioned earlier, that many people do question, why would a just God allow so many bad things to happen? And quite honestly, if we look around, we do see, we do hear many tragic stories. Some maybe that hit close to home. Others may not hit close to home, but we feel sympathy and we feel the pain of those. I mentioned earlier, or asked a question earlier, about punishment versus discipline. And I also mentioned that it is my belief that there are circumstances where we are forced or compelled to get out of our own way and trust the process. Sometimes, and again, please remember, this is just my belief. Sometimes I believe that we may fight for things try to make things happen when our Creator may be trying to tell us that what we're fighting for isn't the best for us. I believe, and again, it's just my belief, that sometimes we're not making the right decisions, or we're about to make a decision that will be extremely detrimental. And we may be put in a situation where we have no choice but to call on our Creator. How many times, again, this can be answered at a later time, but how many times have you found yourself in an emergency situation and in the back of your mind, you know that you're going to be okay because you have the telephone numbers of not only your family members, but your friends. But when you go to call these people, not one single person is there. You could be stranded on the side of the road, and everyone in your Rolodex or in your cell phone or whatever device that you have, no one is there. Or the ones who are there or the ones that answer may say, I got you. I'll be right there. And they never show up. I believe sometimes these situations happen so you can activate your faith. And again, this is for believers to activate your faith in the Creator. I have had, as I mentioned earlier, situations where blessings have come, at the 11th hour. And trust me, it was not man that opened the door. I do believe by way of the Creator, because I believe just as the adversary can work through people, the Creator sends people as well. That doors were open. Doors that were shut, opened. Opportunities that were afforded. Out of nowhere. I still don't have explanations for those. Nicole is laughing out loud. Well, I'm glad that you got a chuckle out of that. And I hope you're having a wonderful night or morning, depending upon where you are, Nicole. But as I said, doors that I don't want to say impossible, but from my optics, that were impossible became very, very possible. Faith is not easy. Believing that a seemingly hopeless situation can get better is very difficult. But for those believers that read and understand and apply the meaning of the book of Job to their lives, may find comfort. I can sit here and tell you I've lost so much. I've been in seasons where I have been blessed abundantly, but I've also experienced seasons of total drought and doubt. Even still, with all of that, my faith has never wavered. Have I cried? Absolutely. Have I ever questioned? Absolutely. But I've also said vehemently, whatever my steps are, place on me the strength to get through. That has been my belief. And that is how I live my life daily. Let me see who else this is. Hey there, Joy. How are you? I am doing well. Is it morning there yet? I know you were sleeping earlier. But yes, I'm just talking about faith in God and praying and the book of Job, how Job lost everything. Well, it was designed, according to the Bible, that he lose and was stripped of everything. Yet he remained faithful to God, and in the end, everything and more was restored. And I ask people if they've ever experienced heartache and heartbreak, and if they remained faithful, or did they stop praying for things to get better? Did they curse whom they refer to as their God in these times of calamity? adversity. Some people may even consider it lack. And in these days and times, there is a lot of lack. The economy, war, greed, and unfortunately, many people who just don't care about others. No sympathy whatsoever. What I find amazing, and I saw a clip of this, I forgot which platform it was on, but it was so cute. This little boy, it was America's Got Talent. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but he was 5 years old, extremely talented. Um, he was about to do his audition with drumming, but Simon, I believe that was his name, Simon Cowell, or I think that's his name, asked the little boy if he became a millionaire, what would he do? The little boy said he would help the homeless people and poor people. And Simon said, well, after you did all of that, what would you do with the money that you had left? He said he would buy himself 200 bags of slime. But if a child, a 5-year-old child, had that much love in his heart to think about the less fortunate, I think it's a very sad commentary where grown adults could care less. Joy knew I had been sick, and every day when she sees me live, or she may place on a video, how are you doing? How are you feeling? That's love. You don't have to know a person directly or personally to care, to truly and sincerely care about someone. There are people that will tell you every day, I love you, I got you, I care about you, but they're not consistent. And they may just say it that one time. But for Joy to ask each and every time, I'm in the United States, Joy is in the Philippines. She doesn't have to do that, but that goes to show that there are people who are extremely genuine and actually care. That's what love is about. And I believe that is what a lot of this world is lacking. People who sincerely care about one another without any expectations. Perhaps if we had more people like that, and trust and believe there are many people out there that genuinely care and love others, the world, in my opinion, would be a much healthy, vibrant, and happy place. is because I'm at my destination now. Tonight's edition of Ride and Vibe, as I spoke briefly on the book of Job, the test of faith of a righteous person who loses everything, who is forced or compelled to weather the storm with unwavering faith. Even with insurmountable odds, when a situation is bleak and appears to be impossible, like with Job. But because he did not waver with his faith, because he remained righteous according to the Bible, everything Job lost was restored. And, as the older folks say, he was given double for his trouble. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Feel free to leave any comments you may have, or if you may disagree, because everyone is not a believer, and I respect everyone's thoughts and opinions. So with that, enjoy the remainder of your night and enjoy your weekend. Until next video. And let me see who this is really quickly before I shut down. Den Max. Have a wonderful, blessed night. Be safe. Be well. And you already know the rest. Be healthier. And don't forget to hit the like button, please. And thank you. Good night. And bye-bye for now.